I think that the
Hi,
hello, I
Lisa.
think the Empire State Building is sitting right on top of my head.
Yes, it is.
There we go.
Um, Good morning, Lisa. How are you? Actually,
Uh,
well, it's morning for you, right?
yep. And good afternoon to you, Prana.
So, I'm really appreciative that you agreed to join me on my podcast today.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I really want my viewers to know about you and the services that you offer and how much you helped me with my business. So, can you just go ahead and start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Lisa, and I love business and I love helping people achieve things within their business. So I do coaching and I do mentoring. I do both because I don't like just asking questions. I like building the relationship and relating to the person. But that is what I do.
Okay. And what are some of the most common pitfalls that you see people come across in their businesses?
I think a lot of the times people are either scared to pull the trigger or they are just fearful of elevating because it is kind of scary, right? Yep. And it's, like the fear of the unknown
Okay. And how do you help people with that?
by asking pretty tough questions. Yeah.
Such as?
I think for me, one of the things I do specialize in is asking tough questions and pushing people to get out the real underlying issues of what it is that's blocking them. So, for instance, I think when it comes to pulling the trigger, it's really asking, what is it that's stopping you? And usually the first couple of answers are very surface answers, but there's usually a deeper reason why, right? It's the same thing when people are nervous about, taking that next step or elevating. There's usually a reason why. But again, the first two answers are usually very surface. And once you sort of get more into it, then the real reason comes out.
Mm, got
Yeah.
you.
So it's like, what's stopping you? What's the reason behind that? You know, what is it that really makes you so fearful that you feel like you just can't move forward?
Mm.
Yeah.
And what were some of the things that you well, let me just share first what I remember our very first conversation. It wasn't actually in a formal coaching relationship. We were on a practice coaching call of sorts, and you were paired with me, and you were my coach in the practice. And I remember you asking me who I am,
Hmm.
and you would not accept a surface answer or some kind of description or anything about, well, I like this and I stand for that. It had to be very, very specific.
Yeah.
And I really felt challenged by that, which was a big part of why I started to work with you because I knew that I wanted to be challenged because without being challenged, you can't grow, right? What doesn't challenge you doesn't change you, as they
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, and it's so true, right? And even you working with your own clients, you learn so much though about not only your client, but you learn so much more about yourself and then your coaching practice, right? And I think the more that you work with somebody, the more people you work with, the more you learn how to be able to dig in. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Absolutely. Because you see where you need to dig. The more
Hmm.
you work with people, you can see where something's hidden under the surface. Um, because I think it takes practice as a coach.
Yeah.
When you first start out, it's hard to see under the surface and it's easy to get caught up in the story. But with practice, you can identify what is surface, where there's something hidden underneath that you need to dig for.
Yeah, it's such an interesting journey, I think, from a coach perspective, right? About how much you learn along the way.
Absolutely.
And I think you really hit the nail on the hammer when you first start. You're scared, right? You're scared to ask questions. You're scared to dig because you don't know, what that person on the receiving end is going to think or how they're going to receive it.
Hmm. Well,
But
and
at the
also I think it's hard to identify sometimes where to dig. It's like being an archaeologist, right? Like you have to be able to identify where you should be digging. And that's something that takes practice as well.
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting journey. I love it so much. I just love the whole business aspect of it and really just keeping on honing into your craft and honing into your craft and just
Yeah.
doing everything that you possibly can to enhance yourself as a coach so that you can keep providing that for your clients.
What are some of the things that you do on a regular basis to enhance yourself as a coach?
Meditate and yoga.
That's great.
Yeah. I It's funny how, I mean, people's own individual journeys are always going to be, different, and then you'll have similarities. It's funny with the Jay Shetty program, how much I learned from that program. But I think each person goes through this similar thing where you're like, oh, no, 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 I'm going to do it my own way. And oh, no, 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 I know better. And you go through this whole entire journey with yourself as a coach. And then it leads you right back to the beginning of all the things that you learned.
Yeah.
Because I find through, well, not now because I'm 2 years in, but the first year, I'm like, I'm going to go do it my own way and figure things out on my own, which is good because you do need to figure things out on your own. But how much stuff that I pull from there now
Mm,
and think back to the things that were taught, I'm like, yep, that all makes so much sense.
right. Right. And I think part of that journey of figuring it out on your own is also getting to know what is your own style and flavor and because that then has to be integrated into what you learned.
Right.
Because otherwise we would be cookie cutter coaches and we're really not. Like each coach offers something so unique because they have their own unique approach, even though
Yeah.
they have the same foundation.
Yes. It's funny that you say that because recently, and I think about it a lot, right? And also working with other coaches and speaking with other coaches, you know, I think at the beginning, what happens is you just want clients and you feel like you can help every single person in the world when realistically you just can't. And even when you feel that you can help everybody, the skill set is not there to be able to help everybody. And the more that you practice and the more people that you work with, it really brings you to the place where, your skill set ends up laying.
Mm,
Yeah. And so because I love business and I love helping people, with businesses and things like that. However, recently I have been attracting so many women who want to build confidence within themselves, who have been in relationships for a long time or have left relationships or have no idea who they are. And I had to take a step back and ask myself, why is this happening?
like why you were attracting those people instead of business people.
Right. Like, how come when I say I love business, I love economics, I love this, I love that, and now all of a sudden I'm starting to attract women who really want to build their confidence, you know?
And did you come to a conclusion?
Well, because you know me, I'm not a social media person and I love talking to people in the real world. And this is how I've been able to obtain my clients. And so I'm not too sure if it's the conversation that happens. I'm not too sure if I'm not too sure, but
Hmm.
I've been really enjoying it. I've obtained two new clients, and I think building confidence building has been even more fulfilling.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it has.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that.
I think with business, it's more logical.
Hmm.
And I think with confidence building, it's more emotional.
I remember you saying once that you weren't into the emotional.
No. Okay. I know. So I will not take on clients who are in traumatic stages. I won't take on clients who aren't ready to move forward. I won't take on clients who are so stuck that, there's no movement. And I think this also goes back to things that I've learned about being 2 to 3 steps ahead, right? So if I feel like I'm, 10 steps ahead of the person, I won't be able to work with them.
Mm, okay, got you. Got you.
Mhm.
So when you said you weren't into the emotional stuff, you meant that.
Yeah.
That when
So,
when people are stuck in emotion.
right. So when it's wavering on that line of, oh, does this person actually need a therapist to
Right.
release? Yes. Or is it something that, no, like I've been there before. It's just I'm going through the motions right now and like I need to dust myself off and continue to move forward, you know.
Mm,
Yeah.
got you. So what is it that you like about the the more emotional work that you're doing now with the confidence building?
Yeah, I think you can push in a different way. Because it's feelings. It's more about how the person's feeling. But business is so logical.
Mm.
You know, I feel with business, the emotions have to be removed, right? You know that.
I don't know. I actually disagree. I think that with business, you have to be able to let the emotions come and go. You can't really completely remove them because emotions are always there.
Yes.
So, but you can't let the emotions distract you, I guess is maybe what you're saying.
Yeah, and exactly. I talk a lot about mindset, and emotional set, right? When it comes to business. And I think it depends too on where a person's at in their business. So I realized by working, with different people and just practicing, 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 and I learned with my own coach and, speaking with my own coach, I realize I cannot work with clients necessarily that are just starting in their business.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So, at what stage of the business do you prefer to work with clients?
I think when they're already 2 to 3 years in.
Okay. And just trying to take it to the next level.
Yes. And this comes down to me as a person, an individual, and patience. Yeah, like I don't think I was born to be a teacher per se.
Ah, so you feel that your style of business coaching when it comes to people who are just starting out their business or what you feel like the clients need when they're just starting out is more educational?
Yeah, like I think And again, it's just could be where I'm at in this moment and, watch now in 5 years, I'm going to be teaching at a university or something. I know, right? Well, university is different too than high school. Um, no, but I think because like I love motivating
Uh-huh.
and I love like, okay, where are we at? What needs to be done? What's missing? Okay, what like, it's a chop, chop, chop kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I find that at the beginning, because there's so much fear, because there's so much anxiety, because there's so much overwhelm, there's just so much going on in the emotional stage that it's hard to support someone in moving out of that because they haven't done it yet. But when they've done it for a couple of years, then they can relate a little bit more. So then the conversation changes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And I would also say though that people still need support when they're in that early stage. It just might not be your niece to support them.
Yeah, and this is why there's so many different coaches, right?
Right.
There's a different coach for everybody. I can't help with trauma, or I don't specialize in marriages per se or things like that, right? And I think too, this is where, and I learned this through another program that I did about being 2 to 3 steps ahead,
Mm.
but not being so far ahead that, the person will get lost. And I think, yeah, so if a person was just starting out in their business, maybe there's another coach that's going to be better for that because they're 2 to 3 steps ahead, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I've started doing coaching for other coaches who are just starting their businesses.
Hmm.
Some of what I work with them on is their mindset because that's something that I'm finally in a good place with. And so I feel like I can help them with that piece of it.
Right.
Um, and I know that it does take patience and it does take, just like continuous encouragement.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and some amount of challenge, obviously. But I think you're right in that it's a little bit limited how much you can challenge when somebody's at the very beginning stages
Yes.
because that confidence level isn't quite there yet. Um, and then I also help with the technical setup, like if they're trying to start a website or some of their, initial advertising or their initial workshops, if they have some fear or like they just don't have confidence in it yet and they want somebody to help them to just, like take those first steps so that they know they can do it. Someone to help them with that or do it with them. That's where I come in. But you're able to help them then when they've already established, but they want to start scaling or take it to the next level.
Yes. And that's what makes you a great coach. And that's what makes another person a great coach. And that's what makes me a great coach. But it's just not for everybody, you know?
Right. And I
Like,
love that you pointed out that like we come out of school thinking we can help everyone. And technically we've been trained to be able to help anyone, but like you said, you the you have to be a good fit for the person in
yes,
terms of where you are in your journey, where they are in their journey, and what skills you have. Because while you can coach anyone about anything, technically, we don't have the skill set to deal with trauma, and that's in the realm of therapy. And sometimes people are also not ready to be coached, or they just don't vibe with you. And so that's why there's other coaches out. And that's totally good.
exactly. Right. You're correct. Because as a coach ourselves too, we have to enjoy the people that we work with.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's important, as much as our clients can't wait to work with us, we also can't wait to work with them. And it has to be that kind of relationship, right? And with coaching too, our clients aren't really meant to stay with us for the rest of their life because
No,
they're going to advance and then they're going to need another coach that's ahead of, wherever they are at that time.
right, right. It really depends on their goals and where they are at that particular time. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, they could be thriving in their business and then all of a sudden go through a divorce.
Right.
And well, that's going to change the dynamics of a lot of things, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely there are a lot of I don't want to say roadblocks, that's not the right word. Like there's a lot of hiccups in life, a lot
Yeah.
of challenges that arise that we have to deal with that change the dynamics of what we're dealing with. We think and it's funny because I think you probably ha know this as well, that with kids, you get a really clear understanding of that. Like you just got it figured out, and then they grow to another stage and things change. And then you're like, oh, this is new. I'm not sure how to navigate this. And so it's a constant, like life itself is a constant learning experience.
Yeah.
Um, and or at least it is if you're learning.
Yes. If you're
Sometimes we
not
get
open to
stuck in
learning.
cycles. Yeah, sometimes we get stuck and keep repeating the same thing because we're not learning our lesson.
Yes.
But life I think is meant to be a constant learning experience and constant growth. And then you have those moments where something kind of derails you momentarily and you're like, "Okay, now what? Like none of this what I was doing, dynamics have all changed. I don't know how to navigate this anymore." And then you go get support. And I know the paradigm around this has been changing, or the thoughts around this have been changing, luckily, in recent years. But I know in the past, a lot of people were raised thinking that getting support meant you were weak.
Hmm.
But everybody needs support,
Yes.
and getting support means you're intelligent enough and strong enough, courageous enough to ask for what you need.
Yes. I know, well, with the millennials and I don't know what, is it Gen Z?
Yeah, Gen Z.
Yeah, it's all a different breed, right? Wait, what are we? Gen Y? Gen X? I don't know.
I'm Gen X. I know that.
Okay, then I think I'm Gen X too. Yeah,
Mm.
but it's with the times though, I I always, I mean, I went through this whole entire thing after my separation, right?
Mm.
Is when I first started working with a coach. So this was already years and years and years ago. Um, but one thing is that I never blame or feel bad about any of the things that I've gone through in my life. I am so grateful that I went through every single thing that I've gone through because it is now in my arsenal.
Mm.
And even when it comes to society, right? I always go against the society norms. It's the rebel. Um, well, what's actually coming up for me right now is my dad. So when I was going through my whole process with my coach and figuring out where things were coming from, and a lot of it stemmed from when I was a child. But I remember at that time thinking about my dad and I was so angry, right? I was so mad at my dad for the choices that he made. And then we kind of flipped it and thought about it from a different perspective. And it was putting myself into his shoes, where he was at in his life, and also his upbringing and things like that. And when when I shifted my mindset and put myself into his shoes, it made me appreciate him so much more, despite everything. And so this is what's coming up when you're speaking about society putting pressures on us to not ask for support and do it ourselves and things like that.
Mhm.
Because my dad grew up in that. He was the man, he's the provider, right? And but his feelings never came out until years later. And I never realized until I was older as well, you know, that he had no choice. He was responsible for 6 kids, and he was responsible for paying for the mortgage, providing food, and it's a lot of pressure and it's a lot of stress, right? Mom didn't work, she stayed home, and it was a lot of stress. And so, it's things like that where I then am like, oh my gosh, you know, and then it trickles into other things. But yeah, I think we all like, I mean, and this is just my perspective, but I think we all want to feel like we can do it and we're strong and we know it all and all of this, but in actuality, like it really does take an army.
It really does. It absolutely does. And I'm so grateful for the army that I have behind me.
Yeah, seriously, for real.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I find it kind of takes me to thoughts about when you're talking about your dad, sometimes people are able to put themselves in their parents' shoes, but yet like I think it's a balance between understanding where they're coming from and still holding on to um your right to feel the way you feel, if that
Absolutely.
makes sense. Yeah, because I think sometimes people make the mistake of being like, oh, well, then that excuses it. But then that kind of, they're hurting themselves all over again. It's not that it's an excuse, it's simply an explanation.
Yeah, I think it's more for the person who's going through the healing process. I think that, um, and this is where the gratitude and appreciation comes in, because the more that you harbor the resentment and harbor the bad feelings and harbor that and hold on to it, the more it's going to destroy you. I don't, I mean, that's not for every single situation, but even in bad situations, the person that's in the healing process, it's really important to be able at some point to learn how to forgive and let it go, not for
Yeah,
the other person, but for themselves.
absolutely. And I guess my point is that part of that process is having compassion for that other person
Yeah.
as well as for your younger self.
Yes, definitely your younger self. Oh man, when I did inner child work, I don't think I cried so much in my entire life, and I think that it cried me out.
And you know what? That's actually beautiful because I've heard people talk about how, like, if you start crying, you'll never stop. Like, it is impossible to continue crying forever. Like, you will cry out eventually.
It
And
will
yeah,
eventually stop.
it will eventually stop. Trust me. No matter how much the suffering is there, the crying will eventually stop. Um, and And the crying itself is literally a stress reliever.
It
It
is.
literally releases the stress physically from your body
Yeah.
of all that pain and trauma. And that's why crying is so healthy. And I know I used to like, it's so weird. And it's like, where do we learn these things? But every time I would start crying, especially if it was like hysterical crying,
Yep.
where I felt kind of out of control,
The snot is
I,
coming down and
right, right, when it's just like, yeah, and you're like,
yeah.
um, and I would ask myself immediately, the thought would come in my head, what's wrong with you? Right?
Yeah.
And I had to change that. I started noticing that that was a thought that I was asking myself that, and I was like, wait a minute, no, this is an appropriate, healthy response to what I'm feeling. And this is absolutely what's right with me, that the tears are coming, they're flowing, and I will eventually exhaust myself and I'll feel better. No?
Do you have it too where it comes at sometimes the most random times?
Yes. Yes, sometimes.
Yeah,
Well, something, and sometimes they're happy tears too. Like
right.
sometimes it's like nostalgic tears.
I had it one time where I was putting cans into my fridge and it just came. I'm like, really? Really?
Right now?
Yeah. Like, what happened? Or I'm driving home from work and all of a sudden I can feel it coming.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is it a thought that precipitates it?
Sometimes it's music.
Mm. That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, sometimes it's music. But it could be anything, even if it's even though, well, we have Telus over here, which are is our phone communications. You guys have like AT&T.
Hmm.
And I remember the commercial came on one time and they had use animals and the hippo came on with the duck or some, yeah, it was like it was the animals walking across the screen and I'm like, oh, and whoop.
Love it. Were the animals just so cute?
They were really cute. Really cute. But yeah. And then I could be at a funeral, nothing.
Mm.
That's what I'm saying.
Do you think that sometimes it could be that it comes when you're in a safe space, that you feel comfortable enough to let it come?
No, I could cry at a Sephora at work too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't really have
No,
anything to do with that. It just
no.
comes when it comes.
Yeah. And I say, let your freak flag fly.
Love it.
When
Love
it
it.
comes, it comes. Allow it to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And I think that's with all emotions. However, there are appropriate ways to let things out and inappropriate ways to let things out.
It's so funny you bring this up.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah. When I worked with my coach, right? Um, so I think when we were kids, because we are like similar ages, what, in our house, we were taught like, don't yell, don't be angry, stop crying, be quiet, sit down. It was very much like that. And
Mm,
so, when you're raised that way, then it trains you to, you know, not feel, I guess, right? Or you like it's bad to, um, be mad or sad or whatever. You should
right.
always be happy, Prana.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we should be robots, right?
Yes. It's very important to be always happy. Um, so and then my mom like my adopted mom passed away when I was 4, and of course at 4 years old, what do you know? But as I grew older I realized how much it affected me. But I was angry. I became an angry child. So I started off as this very quiet, lovely, cute child, And then after that happened, I became angry, 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 angry. And then things happened and continued to happen. And by the time I was a teenager, I was just mad, right? I was mad, angry, violent, just everything. The only way that I knew how to express was through anger. Well, of course, then that continues. Like if you don't, know how to cope and deal with it, then it continues to travel on into your adult life, right? And then it comes into your relationship. It wasn't until I worked with that coach where we started talking about the feelings wheel. That's when I first learned about the emotions and the feelings wheel. And so when we were learning about it in the school, I'm like, oh, I know that. Um, yes. And so she would ask me, what are you feeling? And I said, I'm so mad. Like I'm so angry, you know, like oh, all the resentment, and I'm just so mad. And she's like, good. I'm like, come again? She's like, good. That's good. I'm like, well, no, it's not. I'm like, I shouldn't be mad. I should be happy all the time. I should feel good, And she's like, why? And I'm like, well, because, those are the kind of things that you should never be feeling. And, you shouldn't be sad and you shouldn't be crying and you shouldn't be mad. And, because, people see it as negative and blah, blah. And she's like, not me. And then we started talking about those specific emotions, about anger, about mad, um, about sadness, right? And then as we started going on, she goes, how long have you felt these emotions? I'm like, I don't know, like roughly, I don't know, like 32 years. She's like,
It's a
give or
long time
take.
to be living with that.
Yeah. And she's like, that's a long time to be living with that. And then, after a while, it's like, well, what are you going to do with those emotions? She goes, because you do know that anger and being mad can be turned into a very positive situation. I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, because that is your strength. See, I'm getting emotional talking about it. But she goes, that's your strength. And I'm like, what? She's like, use it to your power, use it to your advantage. Put all of that anger, channel all of the mad and put it towards something good. And I had never in all of my life ever heard this before. Ever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. So I started hiking, I started doing this, I started doing that. I started like I went and went back to work and I started I just started like putting all of that back into myself and like channeling out of course, but and and then you know from that moment on I realized that we don't have to only take the positive or what we see as a society as positive emotions and discard the rest. And like you said, right, about um, disregarding ourselves or diminishing what we feel, right? But taking those other emotions and utilizing them.
Right. Right. And letting them out in a way that's beneficial rather than
Right.
letting them out in a way that's harmful.
Exactly. Yeah, well, we don't want to take the anger and then, go out into the world and do things that we should.
And right, and harm anyone. And that was really, what I was bringing up. But at the same time, it's like, it's okay to scream if you need to scream, not to
Yeah.
be belligerent towards someone, but you can, go in a room by yourself and scream bloody murder, or walk out into the forest and scream bloody murder. Um, yeah, I mean, you can punch a pillow, you can take boxing classes, whatever helps you to release that in a way that, like you were saying, that you actually were able to release it in a way that was beneficial for you. You were
Yes.
taking that angry energy and hiking it out
Yes.
and building business strategy
Yes.
and tackling challenges at work with that energy,
Yes.
because that's what emotion is. It's an energy,
It is.
and it's an energy that has to be released from your body or it literally will make you sick.
It will literally make you sick. And going back to when we were speaking about the crying and the sadness, right? And even society, and a lot of it is on men, right? Or males, boys, males. They're also trained not to cry, not to show emotion. And of course, I was raised that way as well. Like men are tough, da da da, going back to my dad. And but the sadness, everyone feels that. I don't care if you are male, female, they, them, she, her, whatever, everyone feels all of these things,
Mhm. It's a
right?
human, part of human existence.
It is. And you can also use the sadness to your advantage because this is that emotion that really helps you to learn how to let go.
Mhm.
When
Yeah,
you
it's
lose,
so true.
yeah, when you lose someone and you lose something that you love, you're gonna be sad.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It,
honestly, it's yeah, and trying to hold that sadness inside and not let it escape your body, that's what keeps you from being able to let go.
yeah,
If you let the sadness escape, then you're letting the attachment go too. The attachment to things staying the same, for instance.
yes, yeah. It's funny because, and for me, it's still hard to, go through the whole process of the emotions. And one of my team members, I've been friends with him for a long time, and he forced me to watch Inside Out. And I'm like, I'm not watching that because I knew. He's like,
Such a cute movie and so good. Such a good analogy.
it's so good. And then he's like, no, he's like, enough is enough. Like, you have to watch it. I'm like, oh. So I went home and I put it on and I started watching it. And then, anyone who's watched it and the part of Bing Bong,
Don't know if I remember that part.
okay, well, like, for anyone who hasn't seen it, I can't, I don't want to spoil it, but there was the part of Bing Bong. And I got so upset and I messaged her, how dare you make me watch this? Now look, this has happened and now I feel so upset and da da da. He's like, good. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I didn't want to come home and feel this way and now I feel sad. And he's like, good. Yeah, he's like, and then, when I got to the end and I and then I realized that sadness was the actual hero of the entire movie. I'm like, oh my God. But she was, though.
Yeah, yeah. And ultimately the lesson was that all the feelings need to be able to exist in harmony with one
Yes.
another and
Yeah.
work together.
I think the second one I resonated with a lot more because more emotions showed up because she was a teenager in that movie and there was
Mm.
bigger emotions. And so when they brought in the new characters, I was like, well, I'm definitely at least 12 of these. Like,
Now that you say that, I don't think I saw the first one. I think I only saw the second one.
oh,
Yeah, I think I need to go back and watch the first one as well.
Oh, great. So then you're going to be messaging me. Why did I tell you that I was going to watch this movie?
Yeah, well, I'll prepare myself. If I don't generally like tearjerkers, but sometimes I watch a tearjerker just because I feel like I need to grieve.
Okay, but I went into the movie knowing what I was getting, like knowing
Yeah.
because everyone had already told me like, "Oh my God, it made me cry so much," and that, and this is, I'm like, no, forget it. And so I knew, I'm like, nope, I am not gonna cry. I'm not getting sucked into this thing. And the more and more you watch, the more it takes you in. And then, yeah, no,
And then you were a goner.
yeah, it sucked
I
me in.
got you.
I said, no way, not today.
Yeah. Yeah, but when the tears need to come, they need to come.
I do. And sometimes it takes a movie,
Yeah.
an animated
Yeah.
movie. Those
Or a
movies
song.
or a song, yeah.
What were you
Yeah.
gonna say?
It is those movies though that get me.
The animated ones.
Yeah. I remember when I watched Soul. Oh, I
Oh,
cried
yeah.
so much in that.
Your soul was so good.
Yeah.
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 So, are there any final thoughts for our listeners today? Anything you want to leave us with?
What's sitting with me right now in this moment, and this is only right now in this moment, so I can't be held accountable for later on. But
Okay.
but I think that we are only here for a short period of time. And I think it's important to not take ourselves too serious and to enjoy every part of the process that we call life.
Including emotions.
Yeah, including
Feel
emotions,
them.
no matter how that work looks like, because it can look different for each person. But life doesn't have to be so serious all the time.
I wholeheartedly agree.
And the world is not ours to fix.
It's not. And guess what?
What?
You don't need to be fixed either.
That's true.
I think one of the biggest lessons that I want all my clients to get is that there's nothing wrong with you.
That's right.
There's nothing to fix. You're perfectly whole and complete just the way you are.
Yeah. And again, going back to my coach, gosh, I should like reconnect with her at this point. But I don't even know where she is actually. I tried looking for her last year, but I think she's not practicing anymore.
Oh,
But
that's a shame.
yeah, because she had kids and everything, so I think
Um,
yeah. But that was the first time when I was 32, 31 or 32. I was in my 30s when I worked with her. And it was the first time in my life where I had heard someone say, you don't need to be fixed.
mm,
I'm like, I need to fix myself first. And she's like, no.
yeah.
Yep. And it's also where I learned from her as well about focusing on strengths and building on the strengths and not focusing on the weaknesses. I've taken that through my whole entire life.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. Because I think when you focus on your strengths, the weaknesses kind of go ahead and come along for the ride. Like
They tend to
they,
disappear a lot.
yeah, yeah. They strengthen automatically just
Mm,
because you're focused on strength.
yeah.
It's like
She
it's
did.
almost magical the way it works.
She did so much strength building, and I've taken that with me up until today.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I feel like you should send her this episode so that she can see how much you appreciate her and how much she was able to help you in your life.
No, I've tried to find her. I can't find her. She's off grid.
Oh, that's a bummer. Well, maybe she'll surface one day and
Yep,
you'll get to have that conversation with her. I hope.
I will. It'll be interesting to reconnect with her because I remember at that time, because this was 11 years, 11 years ago. Yeah, close to 11 years ago. And I said to her, I said, oh, I said, maybe one day I'll become a coach myself. She's like, I could see that. But it took 10 years of growing before it actually happened.
Yeah, things happen in their own time
It
when they're
does.
meant to happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, I just thought of one other crazy question.
Okay.
What did you see as my biggest stumbling block when you were coaching me?
You know what comes up right away? Being your worst enemy and standing in your own way.
And how did you see me doing that?
Because I can see you, the true Purana, being like, I can do this. And then the person standing in front of you saying, no, you can't. You go do this instead. And you're like, okay. Yeah. That's honestly the only thing that comes up.
Cool. Well, that's valuable. Thank you.
Yeah. Like just continuing to stay on track. But I don't think that there's anything wrong about it because everyone falls off track, everyone gets distracted, I don't think that it's any sort of disorder or some diagnosis or I really honestly don't. I think it's just a natural thing, you know?
Mhm.
We get
Yeah.
distracted. Things happen. We can't
Mm.
always be
Yeah.
doing the thing.
I definitely have recognized the need for discipline in terms of business building. And one thing that I still find myself doing is going down rabbit holes. So like I might sit at my computer and work until 10, 11 o'clock at night because I know that the work needs to get done and I know that and I'm actually excited about the work because I find it interesting, I find it creative and fun, but I might have spent the vast majority of those hours down a rabbit hole. Like yesterday, I spent
No.
yesterday I spent all day making one Instagram reel
Okay.
because I was trying to learn how to do it and the different tools and stuff in Canva. And I don't really see it as a waste of time because now I like have a solid base on how to do that and I think I could do it real quick going forward. But but my daughter was totally laughing at me yesterday. She was like, "Are you serious? You spent, and she's a Gen Zer and she said something and I can't remember what it was and I was like, "Okay, Gen Z." And
Yeah.
she was like, he's like, "No, you can only say that to boomers. You can't say that." And I'm like, "Well, I'm saying it." But yeah, I definitely can find myself down rabbit holes and um sometimes I don't listen to my maybe you might call it like my higher self in regards to what the priorities are.
But you get there though eventually.
I do get there eventually. I do get there eventually. Yeah. So
And
it's
yeah.
totally okay.
But then do you find, okay, because I'm not going to go into a big thing, but then do you find that, okay, like you spent 8 hours figuring this out, which is actually a great thing because now you know how to do it. But then do you feel like you would never spend another 8 hours doing that same thing again because you've already done that 8 hours? So now you'll kind of just bang through it next time.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Or I might spend 8 hours in Canva learning how to do a different thing in Canva.
right.
Right.
But then you'll become this master at Canva.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Because I do have the patience once I'm down that rabbit hole and hyper focused and really like determined to get this right and
Right.
learn this tool, I do learn a whole lot. So, yeah,
And then you are able to help people who are stuck with the exact same thing. And you're
right,
like, oh no,
exactly. And I can
I'm
save them time so they're not in there for 8 hours.
exactly. But that's the whole thing that makes you a good coach is you've gone through the dumps of it all, like spending an 8 hours doing that one thing, right?
Right.
But I guarantee that even people that are Canva experts, right, have done the exact same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to do that to become an expert. However, I do think that Gen Z can do those things a little faster because they're just more adept at technology in general.
Yeah, because they've been on
Um,
an iPad since they were one.
right. I mean, of course, my kids weren't, but since they were at least in middle school, they were actively dealing with technology all the time, whereas I didn't get technology until I was in my like mid 20s of any sort. And I don't
Right.
think I got like I was like I don't think I got a smartphone or anything like that until I was in my 30s.
Right.
So yeah, that does kind of put us at a disadvantage in that sense. But yeah, I think one of my biggest strengths that I'm really proud of myself for is that I am obsessed with learning. So
Mm,
anytime there's an opportunity to learn something, I do not shy away from that and I go all in. And so if there's something I want to learn, I'm gonna learn it. I think the downside of that, because there's always like an upside and downside. The downside is sometimes I take on more learning than I actually have time or bandwidth for.
right. Right.
Yeah.
But then you know that. At least you recognize it.
Yeah. Like right now, I'm in 3 courses that I really need to get finished before September when I start another really intensive course. So, and each one of these courses could take months. So I'm like, okay, how do I do this? How do I fit this in the time frame that I have? But
And then there's me on this side. You're running out of time, so you better hustle.
yeah. So anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining me today and for your important and valuable insights.
Always a good time with you.
Thank you. You too. I so enjoy your association.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully I'll have you on again soon.
Yes, would love that. Thank you.
Awesome. Bye.